Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 539 for the 16th of August. And let's start off with cross-border shelling. Cross-border raids. Yesterday we have already reported about the Kukovichi raid by the Ukrainian forces, and this happened again. According to information from Ryba, they reported that the governor of Bryansk announced a repeated attempt by the Ukrainian forces to cross into the state border, and they managed to discover 6 men, and 5 of them were taken out. Not sure what happened with the other one. So this happened in the morning of 16th of August, and then there was a missile strike reported over at Reni. This is reported by Ryba as well. Strike by the Russian forces on the port. So there's this port. This port actually goes along the Danube River. So container ships and everything will follow this river all the way out into the Black Sea. And I think this is the one where they have this viral video of the anti-aircraft guns firing at the Garand 2 suicide drones. So I believe this is the place where they strike. So that's where the video was taken. So you can see some of the caption actually writes that the video is taken from Romania. So that's what it is. And moving on to the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, this is Kupyansk. At the Kupyansk Front, the Russian forces continue their Kupyansk offensive, with fighting reported at Sinkivka and Vyshana region. The Ukrainians also do counterattack in the area here. And so no, they are definitely actively trying to hold back the Russian forces. Fighting is reported at Sinkivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry and their Zapat group of forces. They mentioned about Ukrainian counterattack over at the Russian positions. However, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russians are conducting offensive operation at Sinkivka. Although they misspelled this. Ryba reported there is some preliminary information that the Ukrainians have withdrawn from Sinkivka. This I will only list it as rumors because preliminary information from Ryba does not always check out. So that's why they also put it as preliminary. They themselves are also not exactly sure. Over at Vyshana, south of Vyshana, this Vyshana, there is fighting reported at Vyshana, with the Russians continue their combat operations, and they claim that they've captured more Ukrainian positions. And then the Russian Defense Ministry, however, also reported that they repelled Ukrainian counterattack at Vyshana, here Oshana. So this is happening over here. The Ukrainians were also reportedly attacking at Menkovka, in similar information from the Zapat group of forces, which is actually in the area around this area here. So the Ukrainians are attacking, definitely counter-attacking and trying to push back the Russian lines to ensure that they will never reach this road or this road. So that's all from the Kupyansk Front. Moving on to the Svatove Front. This is Svatove. At the Svatove Front, in the northern flank of the Svatove Front, we have fighting reported at Novoselivsky. According to the Russian Defense Ministry and the Zapat group of forces, they reported that the Ukrainians tried to attack and recapture lost positions at Novoselivsky. And further south at Stemakivka, we have fighting reported at Stemakivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, they repelled a Ukrainian attack by the 14th, 32nd, 44th Mechanized and the 95th Air Assault Brigade. That was also reportedly attacking all the various other different positions. So fighting is reported at the Stemakivka region. That's all from the northern flank. In the southern flank, there is only one information. Surya Maps and Remelin, the pro-Russian source, reported that the Russians actually managed to expand their control zone around Karmazynivka. However, their mapping only shows up to this position, and then Remelin actually draw further. He draw arrows out of the salient. So not exactly sure what is this situation like, because the Surya Maps mapping does not reflect the same mapping as what DPA have. Surya maps map it a bit more conservative on for the Russians. So let's see how this goes. Whether the Russians start another new offensive operation in the Karmazynivka region, and to draw Ukrainian forces away from the Kupyansk Front. That's all from the Svatove Front. Moving into the Kreminna Front. At the Kreminna Front, we only have reported fighting within the Serebranske Forestry region. Fighting is reported near Kuzmine, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, as well as within the Serebranske Forestry, according to the Center Group of Forces. So they say that they managed to repel the 67 Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. So the Ukrainians are actually attacking, continuing their attacking within the forest. So we shall continue to monitor this as we go along. And within the Siversk Front, this is Siversk. At the Siversk Front, we have some reported fighting at the Bilohorivka, according to Myroshnikov, the pro-Ukrainian source. The pro-Ukrainian source say that the Russians have some little success in the industrial area, and industrial area refers to this area here in the southeastern part of Bilohorivka. So maybe the Russians are making a further push in this area here, and towards the town, which is being fought over for a very long time. In the southern flank, we only have one information about fighting reported at Yavkolivka. We can also put this as blue, as Ukrainian attacking, because Myroshnikov, the pro-Ukrainian source, did not mention who is the one that is fighting at Yakovlivka. They only say that it's fighting near the village. So I believe it's probably Ukrainian, I guess. The Ukrainians are attacking Yakovlivka. And that's all from the Siversk Front. And moving into the Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, you may see that there's a lot of icons, but I just want to highlight in advance. Most of these are very positional, very skirmish, small fighting. It's not offensive action. So even though it looks like some massive Russian offensive in this direction, it's not. It's just border fighting, frontline fighting. So there is fighting reported at Bodanivka. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they say that the Russians conducted offensive operations near Bodanivka. So maybe some push, perhaps. There is fighting reported near Bakhivka, according to the pro-Ukrainian source Myroshnikov. And so, yeah, that's about it from the northern flank. In the southern flank, we have a Russian Ka-52 that got shot down this morning. Basically, this is one of the latest information that came out from Ukraine, with the Russian Ka-52 shot down over somewhere in the Bakhmut Front, reported by the Ukrainian Air Force commander, which is then the information was shared by the Ukrainian Air Force Telegram channel. The Russians are also conducting a periodical counterattacks, basically at Klishevka and Andriivka, according to Myroshnikov, which means the Russians are periodically trying to probe the Ukrainian lines to try to see if there is any weakness. Further south, there at Kudyumivka region, Myroshnikov reported that the Ukrainians have tactical success, whatever that's supposed to mean, at Kudyumivka and Ozeryanivka. Basically, it's the day before yesterday. It's not the day before yesterday, but yesterday, Myroshnikov reported that the fighting was in the south of Kudyumivka. So now he say that they're fighting at Kudyumivka and Ozeryanivka. So maybe they flanked out. I'm not sure. So that's the situation. Myroshnikov is the only one that was reporting any fighting in this area here. So we need to continue to monitor and see what whether this information can be corroborated in days to come. There's nothing over the New York front. This is New York. And moving into the Avdiivka Front. At the Avdiivka Front, we have fighting reported at Krasnohorivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. In the same report, they also mentioned about Nevelsky over here. So there's some attack here and here. So nothing much. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry, as usual, just say fighting reported at Avdiivka, in the area of Avdiivka. But based on the previous report, they say it was from the south, so I'm going to assume it's going to be from the south, with the Russians attacking northward towards the fortress city of Avdiivka. And that's all from the Avdiivka front. Moving into the Donetsk front, we have fighting reported at Marinka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Marinka is very weird. We have reports of fighting over at Marinka for all this time, but we had literally no interest or information coming from any of the OSIN or other non-governmental sources. So it's very weird. They keep reporting that the Russians are attacking Marinka, and it was not even mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. Like, nobody really cares about this place. So that's kind of weird. And there is a very weird report. Ukrainian Sukhoi 25 shot down over Novotroysk. And Novotroysk is actually deep, somewhat deep, you know, within the Russian front line. It's like 12 kilometers, 10 to 12 kilometers away from the front line. And there's this Ukrainian Sukhoi 25 that got shot down. I'm not sure why is it flying so deep into Russian territory, or did I miss a location that is in the Ukrainian position that is also called Novotroysk, but I didn't find it, so I assume that this is the correct one. I did try to find through various mappings, but I cannot find. This is the only place that was being marked as Novotroysk, which is a rarity because Ukrainians like to repeat names. We have nothing over at the Voleda region. The last reported fighting was on the 11th, and it looks like the Voleda offensive or the Mikhailsk offensive, depending on how you want to call it, is basically no more. Moving into the Zaporizhzhia front, basically is this area. This is the Zaporizhzhia front, and now at the Velika Novosilka sector, there is major information. The Ukrainian forces have captured Urozhaine, now officially announced by the 35th Separate Marine Brigade, named after Rear Admiral Mikhail Ostrogradski. I have no idea why they have to call it like, okay, they're just the 35th Separate Marines, and they have declared that they have captured Urozhaine, and this is celebrated by Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source. And Surya Maps also repeated the same exact information, claiming the information comes from the same sources. So, which means finally we have the confirmation of the Ukrainian forces have captured Urozhaine. And however, this while they have officially secured it, we still have the Russian Defense Ministry reporting that they are fighting and attacking Russian positions near Urozhaine. Of course, the term used is near. So near can also means here. This is also near. So, which is not wrong. So that's why take this with a pinch of salt. We have fighting reported near Zaporizhzhia, which is basically the next Russian position over here south of Urozhaine. And the Ryba reported that Urozhaine has crossed into the gray zone, like as if it died. And they say that the Ukrainians continue their attacks in the southern direction. So it's kind of weird because they can continue to attack in the southern direction south of Urozhaine but refuse to say that it's captured. They say it's gray zone. So let's see how long Ryba will take to, you know, acknowledge that they have lost this position. Then they say that the Russian forces are now holding back Ukrainian positions near Zaporizhzhia. So basically already acknowledge that the Ukrainian forces have already went past Urozhaine and putting pressure on the Russian positions at Zaporizhzhia. So yeah, very not forthcoming. Over at the Staromayorsk region, the Russian Defense Ministry continued to report that they are attacking Ukrainian positions at Staromayorsk. According to the Vostok group of forces, they reported that they are inflicting fire damage, and the Russian Defense Ministry reported that this is through the ground forces, airstrike, artillery fire, heavy flamethrowers in a combined strike. So this sounds quite scary, and so I'm not sure where are they exactly hitting. Is it within or inside or near or whatever? So there is definitely some heavy firing to keep the Ukrainians disorganized. in their offensive actions. We do not have any more reports of fighting in the western part of Staromayorsk, nor in the southeast of Novodarivka or at Prione. None of this, there is no reports of any fighting around this area here. And moving on, we have nothing at Huaypole. The fighting in the north of Dorozhaine, Dorozhainka basically is a false alarm, in the sense that there was fighting reported by Deep State UA, but it was not an offensive. And we go into the Orikhiv sector, which is at Robotyne. So the Ukrainian forces continue their attack into Robotyne. Information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, they say that it's the 82nd Air Assault Brigade that is attacking at Robotyne and Verbove. What is interesting is that they mention Verbove as near. The Ukrainian forces are fighting close to Verbove, which is here. And this might seems to suggest that the Ukrainian forces are continuing their offensive and they are pushing closer and closer towards Verbove. But of course, we haven't have any evidence of information that the Ukrainians have break past this major defense line. So I'm going to assume that the fighting is still going to be just off the defense line. They have not penetrated through just yet. And at the Robotyne, we have further information coming from this. Actually, the source is not from Remlin, it's actually from another group. I forgot the name, Avant-Garde or something. So it's a pro-Russian information. They reported that at Robotyne, the information, the situation is very tense. The Ukrainians constantly attack. I'm not sure what's the meaning of Bradley over here. Maybe it's a mistranslation. Or are they attacking with Bradley? By my understanding, they are not using Bradley over at this at the Robotyne region. They are using Striker. So let's see how this goes. But they say that there's a renewed rollover attempt using foreign equipment, basically Western armor. And after prolonged fighting, there was silence. Artillery fired in both directions and positions were hit with cluster munition. So was there silence or artillery firing in both directions? Yeah, so no. So silent artilleries, no. They put the muzzle on the artillery, so the artillery is very quiet. And so that's it from Orikhiv. And so fighting continues. There is already a widespread acknowledgement by pro-Russian sources that the Ukrainians have entered Robotyne from the northeast, and they are currently fighting to capture the entire settlement. And yeah, and for those that I may not have heard me say it, or maybe I didn't say it, the Ukrainians have already captured all these major strongholds around all these positions. So as well as these two long trench lines. So the Ukrainians are doing pretty decently. But yeah, I will talk more about it later. And over at the Kayamsky sector, this is Kayamsky. At the Kayamsky sector, there is shelling being reported at Pyatikaki, and not just shelling, but also kamikaze drones. So the Ukrainian forces continue their attempt to move to Pyatikaki, but they constantly get struck. And Ukrainian forces continue to try to entrench themselves and maybe move in, maybe it's rotation, whatever it is, they got hit by the Russians. So basically, Pyatikaki, despite I put it as blue, is basically a gray zone. It's a no man's land. The Ukrainians struggles to try to entrench in this position, and it looks like they are not going to entrench themselves at Pyatikaki anytime soon. Moving into the Kherson Front. At the Kherson Front, we have some news. Near Kosonka, the Ryba reported, the pro-Russian source reported that there is some attempted, there's some Ukrainian boats that was hit by Russian Air Force and artillery strikes. And it looks like this is attempted landing of Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups. And so there is some amphibious operation near Kosonka. And there's another one that was reported all the way at the mouth of the river, of the Dnipro River, just off the Soloki Island. Soloki Island is actually this one. This is Soloki Island. It's not indicated on the Google Maps is indicated in Russian maps. So anyway, in this area here, along the river region around here, the Dnieper group of forces reported that through area reconnaissance, they identified a cluster of light watercraft, fast-moving ones, with landing party and ammunition on board. So they actually use artillery, the reserve division, and attack drones. So it's not just artillery now. Nowadays, range attack, distance attack is not just artillery. It will be combined with suicide drones and attack drones, which is one hell of a scary to be fighting in modern day war. But yeah, they carry out fire attacks against this identified fast-moving watercraft, and they actually reportedly, allegedly, maybe, possibly, perhaps destroyed 4 watercraft, but maybe not. But yeah, depending on whether you want to believe the Russian Defense Ministry or not. So that's all from the Kherson Front. And so that's all for the summary of the day of 539 for the 16th of August. So let's do some conclusion or some or note, DPA note about the situation now. The Ukrainians are continuing their useless or waste of time attempt along the river at the Dnipro River. I cannot see this becoming any form of useful or meaningful unless you have massive fleet of landing craft that allows you to do one massive offensive into Kherson, which is they can't. They don't have it. And the situation over at the Orikhiv sector at Robotyne is looking quite bad for the Russians. The Ukrainians are continuing their attack into Robotyne, and with this information talking about near Verbove, the Russian Defense Ministry has almost never talked about Verbove. So now that Verbove has come into their literature, so it looks like the Ukrainians are definitely, you know, putting pressure, may use another color, putting pressure on Verbove, and this is looking yeah, not very good. But there is a good reason for this. Multiple pro-Russian sources mentioned that the Ukrainians have mobilized their reserve forces. So with the Ukrainians mobilize their reserve force, and reportedly this force is actually very huge. They have the striker vehicle. There's another vehicle I forgot, and allegedly the tanks that they're using are the Challenger tanks. So the pro-Russian sources or channels are really excited because they are looking forward to seeing a destroyed or captured Challenger. I'm not too sure. I'm not sure why they are so optimistic. Maybe the Challengers will just be used in the long distance fire support role, which makes it really hard to destroy. Who knows? And so if they don't run over mines, I think it's quite hard to take out a Western tank nowadays. And but this also put into question, if the Ukrainians are making good progress because they are using the reserves, then what happened if this reserve force got exhausted or spent? Is there more forces to come behind it? We are not sure. The situation is that if you zoom out, we are still looking at massive amount of defense lines around this area here. And even if they manage to capture Verbove, they manage to break through and capture Verbove, they capture Robotyne, maybe they go down, capture Novopropkovivka, that is still nowhere close to their actual objective of Tokmak. So this is looking quite bad, because if your biggest force of reserve is now used on the first line of defense, I'm not aware of the Ukrainians have any other force that can be deployed, because the Leopard 1s are not here yet, the Abrams tanks are not here yet. So I'm not, definitely there are still these brigades. So you have to be aware the Ukrainians still have reserve forces, but are they in the front line? Maybe they are not. And because they're still waiting for the equipment to come, the Leopard 1s are not here yet, Abrams tanks are not here yet. Then I think there's still a lot of Bradleys that we haven't seen, I think. So the Ukrainians still have the fighting capability, but there is still a lot more to grind. I think the pro-Russians are a bit too pessimistic about the Ukrainian chances. They say that after this reserve force they will have to negotiate. I do not think that's the case. I don't think that will be the case. As I mentioned, the Ukrainians still have quite a number of reserve offensive brigades that still can be used and utilized. So we shall continue to see how this goes. Ukraine definitely still have a certain level of confidence that they can achieve something. Over at the Velika-Novosibirsk sector, we finally have this a confirmation of the capture of Urozhaine. As I mentioned earlier, before this, there is no real capture just yet. They are still fighting to secure it despite the Russians have retreated. And now that the fighting has been pushed all the way to Zaporizhzhia, so which means that the front line have actually moved all the way here. This is the front line now, and this is probably the reason why they can conclude that the Ukrainians have fully conquered Urozhaine, and they can now go and eat lasagna over at Zaporizhzhia. So not sure if the lasagna is going to be tasty or it's going to be very explosive. They put a lot of chili, and if it's too spicy, then yeah, it definitely there's a river crossing over here, so this is going to make it very spicy. The best bet for the Ukrainians at this moment is probably to attack from Staromayorsk, but as I mentioned before, the Ukrainian forces still have not captured the western part of Staromayorsk, and this makes it really impossible for the Ukrainian forces to just go on for Zaporizhzhia. So I think the next move for the Ukrainians is likely to be a major offensive towards the west of Staromayorsk, and I think this will allow the Ukrainians to establish a stronghold around here and allow them to push for Zaporizhzhia. And take it in a pincer, I think the Russians will have no choice but to withdraw further down to Starolinivka. But this is just my speculation. Otherwise, there's nothing much really happening over at the Bakhmut Front. Basically, they are all exhausted and bored about fighting over there. And I think everywhere else is the same. This one was interesting. Karmazynivka, the Russian forces suddenly attacking in the area of Karmazynivka again. We shall continue to watch if this becomes a major offensive again in this area here. This is going to become a massive headache for the Ukrainians, because then after everything just died down, now they have to go and reinforce again to hold back the Russians again. So this is not going to be very tasty for the Ukrainians. And over in the Kupyansk Front, the Russian offensive continues. Over the Kupyansk offensive, they are continuing to push, and the Ukrainians are doing everything they can to counterattack and push back the Russians to prevent them from able to do this offensive. There's one problem with the information in this area, is that the Russians keep saying this place called the Utsi Forest. I cannot find this place, and I'm not sure where exactly this Utsi Forest is. There's speculation it might be this, but who knows, man. I even asked God GPT about it. Even God do not know. So God GPT also cannot answer where is Utsi. So nobody knows what's Utsi. So anyway, this is the that's all for the DPA note. I think, and also this cross-border stuff is not going to do much. Anyway, thank you for watching. That's all for the summary, and I'll see you. Do press the like button, subscribe, and do share this with your friends and family. Just spam it on your social media. Hopefully, maybe there will be people who are interested that might click and watch it, and that helps with the algorithm to push the DPH video to more people. Thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next update.